Good evening. These detectives hope that in the next hour or so, the phones here will bring them as much help as their colleagues had from Crimewatch viewers last month. You may remember we appealed about a chilling attack on a family home in Essex. A couple and their children were held hostage by 3 gunmen, and the husband was forced to steal from the Tesco store he managed in Ipswich. It was a strikingly similar crime to a hostage sort of situation that we reconstructed 2 years ago.
Well, several callers gave a name for the man who seemed to be the leader of the gang. As a result of those calls, after 2 unsuccessful raids on premises in England, a man was arrested by North Wales police in Snowdonia. Soon afterwards, 2 other men were arrested in Essex. All 3 have now been accused of both the cases featured on Crimewatch and also with 2 others where families were held hostage. Charges include conspiracy to kidnap, false imprisonment and blackmail and possession of firearms. And one of the defendants has been charged with threats to kill.
And tonight's 3 reconstructions equally rely for their results on Crimewatch viewers. Paul Griffiths remembers how a man passed him as he arrived home one evening. When he opened his front door, he found his father had been murdered. Who was the man? Why did he kill someone? Where did he go? Andrew Elphick was a store manager. A week before he went missing, he had several £1,000s in cash. What was he up to? And why has he disappeared? Vera Anderson went to the pub. A few hours later, she was found murdered in her car. Who was the man she had a drink with? And why did a man who called a taxi have a handkerchief wrapped round his hand?
Well, our first case tonight is the murder last summer of Tom Griffiths at his home in northwest London. Tom, who suffered from Parkinson's disease, lived with his son Paul and daughter-in-law Kim in a ground-floor flat near Cricklewood, Broadway. On Friday, the 28th of June, for no reason anyone can imagine, he was savagely murdered. In our film, although actors take the parts of Paul and Kim, it's Paul's voice you hear describing what happened. Our reconstruction begins at their flat in Cricklewood.
After Mum died 2.5 years ago, my dad really didn't seem to take much care of himself. He sort of let himself go, really. He used to drink a lot since Mum died. He had nothing really else to go on for, really. It was closer than anything you can really imagine. Mum was actually part of Dad.
I'll go up as well, I think.
Right. Good night.
Night, Dad.
On the morning of the day Tom was murdered, Friday the 28th of June, he went to St John's Wood to do some odd jobs for a family friend. He left there at about 10:30. But no one knows how he spent the rest of that day. He arrived home at around 6 o'clock. Tom would often have a few drinks before he went out in the evening. And he'd always put the radio on to deter burglars.
This is Ian Ramage. Yugoslavia and the Republic of Slovenia say they've agreed to a ceasefire, ending civil war, which has left...
His local pub is the Windmill on Cricklewood, Broadway. It's only 300 yards from his home. The key to his murder may well lie in what happened here that night. He joined his friend, Dave Sampson.
Hello, you get Dave.
On the Friday evening, Tom came in about 9. He appeared to have been drinking at home that evening.
Oh, so as usual, bit of this, bit of that. Bloody cars playing me up. Do you know, I'd have spent a fortune on that bloody thing.
Tom got a little bit loud, but it wasn't really a problem.
Hello. How are you? You all right? You enjoying yourself? Yeah. That's good.
He did his usual round of the tables, but no one seemed to really get annoyed at it.
But Tom may have upset someone, and police still need to talk to anybody who might have seen him in the Windmill pub that Friday night.
Are you all right, Tom? Take care, mate. Watch how you go down the road.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
See you, Dave.
You all right?
Yeah.
Sure.
See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, mate.
It was 11:10 when Tom left. A few minutes later, Dave Sampson also left. Outside, he saw Tom standing in the road talking to a couple. A man standing in the doorway appeared to be watching them. 5 minutes later, Barry Tuffy was walking along Cricklewood Broadway.
I was taking my dog Max for a walk about 11:15. I noticed this man in the road talking to two young girls. His age about 60. And they had their hand out. They was looking for, well, basically money. That's what I thought it was, you know. And then the two young girls ran past me, heading towards Kilburn. So I just thought, oh, you know, they must have got a couple of quid off the guy, you know. And then I turned the dog round and I walked back. The guy was still there, he was arguing with two guys. One black, one white. I turned round, he was spinning round. He landed on the floor, my shoe fell off. And I thought, poor sod, you know.
An hour later, Tom would be dead. Meanwhile, in Scardew Road, a neighbour across the street from Tom's house saw a couple arguing. They stopped outside Tom's flat. An hour after that, at about 20 past midnight, the woman in the flat above Tom's heard him shouting in the shared hall downstairs. Paul and Kim had spent the evening out.
OK, it's just a little way on the right here. A bit further along. That's the one. Yeah, that's it. I get it.
You sure?
Yeah, I've got it.
Good enough.
Okay, it's 5 of them, please.
OK.
When Kim and I got home, I saw a man walking down our pathway, turning right to walk down towards the Broadway. I didn't really take much notice of him. You know, it could have been a friend of upstairs. You know, we've often seen that before. I saw the only man in the street, which was about 20, 30 yards down the road. So I then ran after him. He turned around, looked, and started running. I lost sight of him as he turned the corner. As I got round the corner, I just seemed to run straight into him.
Now piss off if you don't want some more.
I'd say the man was about 6 foot tall. He's in his late 20s, early 30s. He had short, curly, light brown or ginger hair. He also had a moustache, I think.
Tom Griffiths had been repeatedly kicked and beaten. He died within a few minutes. Well, Mr. Dixon, as I said earlier, Tom was killed for no reason that anyone can imagine. Have you any theories at all?
Well, the motive isn't clear because he did have property on his person which wasn't taken. His flat wasn't broken into. As you've seen from the film, I think perhaps his behaviour in the pub was the cause of it, or perhaps when he left the pub in the Cricklewood Broadway.
So it could be absolutely crucial that anyone in the Windmill pub that night, Friday the 28th of June, comes forward.
Yes, it is. That's a particularly busy area. There are a lot of Irish people. It may well be that they are not in the area now. They've returned home. I need to talk to anybody who may have seen anything in the pub or immediately outside.
And I know you feel that there could be around 30 people who haven't come forward yet, so please do call if you were there. Where do you think Tom went in the hour between 20 past 11 when he was seen outside the pub and the time he was found dying an hour later?
In the past, he's gone to late-night cafes or he's gone to dance halls or drinking clubs. He could even have gone off and had a drink with a casual acquaintance. I must emphasise that I'm trying to find anybody who can assist me with his movements in those hours.
Right, that's another thing. Now, when Paul chased the killer and rounded the corner to encounter the man who then punched him, that man presumably need not have been the killer. It might have been somebody different.
That's right. It may well not have been. You'll have seen from the film that he ran after him, turned left, and there was the man. It would seem strange if he was the killer that he would be so available. If that man has nothing to do with it, he may well have seen the killer. It's very important that I speak to him.
There's the artist's impression of him again. The killer left behind one very important clue.
Yes, he did. He left a footprint, and that footprint we know comes from a pony training shoe, size 11. That's one of a similar type, but of course it can be of many different colours.
It's quite a distinctive sole to it.
Yes, it is.
And as you say, that wouldn't have been multicoloured necessarily. It could have
Not
been any other
necessarily,
colours.
no.
Do we have a description of the man who we believe killed Tom?
He was in his late 20s, early 30s. He was about 6 foot tall. The only definite feature is he was wearing those trainer shoes. I need to speak to anybody who may have any knowledge of such a person, or particularly someone who wears those shoes at the period of June and isn't wearing them now.
Right, and remember that's a size 11. So we're going back 4 months here to the summer, Friday the 28th of June. If you can help, your information will be treated with absolute discretion. You can ring us here on 081 811 8181, or you can contact the Albany Street Police Station direct. The number there is 071 725 4212. That's 071 725 4212.
One of the problems of Crimewatch is that people who see themselves featured on the programme sometimes get up and disappear before the police can get to them. And that seems to have happened with one and perhaps two of the cases we featured on last week's photo call. We'll let you know how those develop. Meanwhile, over 100 viewers rang about these two, Messrs Roberts and Jones. One caller led detectives to a Jeep which a man had bought from them the previous week in Warrington. It's thought the two are now driving a red Austin Princess, which, alas, has not yet been paid for.
Well, now here are Superintendent David Hatcher and Detective Constable Jackie Hames to take us through this month's collection of photo call faces.
First, officers in Hove, Sussex would urgently like to trace this man, Peter William Fletcher, about an attempted murder which took place in early September. It happened here at the Wick Inn pub at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when a 39-year-old man was shot in the head at point-blank range. Although it was a clear attempt on the man's life, miraculously he survived. Peter Fletcher, who also uses the surname Russell, is 47, 5'8" and stocky, with a number of tattoos on both arms. If you think you know where he is, please phone us tonight.
In Nottingham on Thursday the 3rd of October at about 1:25, this man went into the Alliance and Leicester Building Society in Listergate. Armed with a gun, he threatened staff and demanded money be put into his cream carrier bag, which ironically had the words "next to nothing" written on it. He wore a cap to try and hide his identity, but someone should recognise this picture. He's in his early 20s, 5'10", slim build with protruding ears. So if you know him, please ring now.
If you live in the north of England and are about to sell something valuable through your local paper, watch out for this man. He's Gary Aston, although he may be using the names Andrew Somerset, Richard Barton or Robert Turner. People living as far apart as Newcastle, Workington and Sheffield are being cheated by a man posing as the business director of a decorating firm. Operating mainly in the northeast, he uses stolen chequebooks and false calling cards. The man has obtained goods worth £30,000, including cars, computers, jewellery and a jet ski. Gary Aston was last sighted in South Shields. He's usually clean-shaven, but sometimes wears a beard. If you've seen him recently, do call us.
Don't be fooled by this individual's smart appearance. He's about to cash a stolen cheque for over £900. 2 chequebooks were taken 30 minutes before from this car parked in an industrial estate in Witney, Oxfordshire, together with a filofax full of credit cards. After that, at a jeweller's in Oxford town centre, these gold bracelets were fraudulently bought by the same man. He's certainly brazen, as later that afternoon he came back to the same bank for more. And already over £5,000 has been cashed right across the country. If you know who he is or can help with any of our other photocall faces, please ring tonight.
And here's the number, 081 811 8181. That's 081 811 8181.
And now the mystery of a young man who simply vanished. Normally the police are reluctant to go hunting for missing people. In a free society, adults of course have a right to walk out on their family and friends. But for this disappearing man, as you'll see, free choice isn't a very convincing explanation. His car was found abandoned with its keys in the ignition about 30 miles from where he lived, and most who knew him now fear the worst. John Cobbett, you're most reluctant to use the M word, as it were, and yet, to all intents and purposes, you are treating this case as though it were a murder. Now, why?
Well, I think initially the way that his car was abandoned, that raised our fears at first, and then as time went on, a week later after his disappearance, we had an anonymous phone call that his body was near a lake in the Slough area. This was obviously checked and it was negative. But also from talking to his close friends and building up a picture of Andrew Elphick, we feel that this is totally out of character for him to disappear under these circumstances.
Well, Andrew Elphick was his name, 21 years old. He lived in Normandy near Guildford in Surrey. His father works abroad and his mother died when he was young. But Andrew was fairly self-assured. In fact, we understand he was more self-possessed than we've portrayed him in the film that follows. His older brother, Robert, helps describe his lifestyle and his personality. Did you know Andrew Elphick? Or do you know anyone who did?
Andrew was a very outgoing young man. He liked to live his life to the full. He enjoyed socialising with his friends, going to parties. Very successful with the ladies. He set himself goals. You know, he wanted the nice things in life. He was always trying to think of ways in which he could make money. He took a lot of pride in his car. He wouldn't let anyone smoke in his car, for example. He certainly wouldn't leave his car unattended with the keys in ignition and open to be stolen or tampered with by a passerby. You know, he definitely wasn't as streetwise as he may have thought, you know, perhaps a little bit overconfident in that area. Could have got himself into difficulties through that.
Put them all up. I don't need any change.
Andrew was a relief manager for Moss Bros, the men's clothing chain. It's Thursday, August the 15th, 8 days before he disappeared.
I've never seen this much money before.
He produced £5,000 in cash and kept it for the day in the safe at the back of the shop.
A few weeks before he disappeared, Andrew said that if he came into a large sum of money, he would invest it in drugs, as he thought he'd get a quick return. And that's out of character for Andrew because he doesn't take drugs. He likes to look after himself. He doesn't smoke, doesn't really drink much. So that's, you know, that was out of character as well.
Sasha, Kavita Urkadu and several other friends were with Andrew at a barbecue in Guildford on Saturday, August the 17th, 6 days before he disappeared.
He said that he was due to come into a lot of money soon, and when he did, he'd take me out to dinner that week. And I said, well, where are you getting the money from? And he said, it's just bad business, I can't tell you. If I could, I would.
During the evening, he talked to some people he used to go to school with.
I've seen you for a long time. How's it going?
I've been away travelling around Australia.
Yeah? I've been there. Didn't think much of it. So what, you into drugs? Why is that?
They assumed he must be joking when he talked about drugs. He said he could make a lot of money out of them.
Well, I got 50 kilos of heroin in my garden shed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. He told me that he was due to go to a club in London called the SW1 Club. I asked him if I could go with him, and he said, no, there's no way you can go, I can't take you, it's for members only.
But eventually, instead of going up to London, Andrew went back home and took Kavita with him.
He was just chatting to me, being quite open. I just got the impression that basically he wanted a good friend to talk to that evening. We're lying on the bed, fully clothed, just kissing and cuddling. We were just dozing off. We had our arms around each other, I remember. All of a sudden, he shot out of bed and said,
God, I've got to make a phone call.
Oh, who's doing it this time? I recall him picking up the phone. He didn't refer to an address book, dialed the number. I got the impression he was talking into an answer machine because he wasn't answering back to anybody.
Sorry to blow you out, mate. I'll be in touch later.
Throughout the next week, life for Andrew apparently went on as normal, but no one seems to know what happened to the £5,000. He didn't seem to have the money when his brother phoned on Thursday night.
How's it going anyway? Fine. Oh, hey, listen, you know that 600 I owe you? Yeah. Well, I should be able to get to you in a couple of weeks. Oh, that'd be good.
Andrew brought up the subject of the money, but I didn't bring the conversation up.
All right, I'll see you later. Bye. Bye.
On the Friday, the day he vanished, Andrew had the day off work and spent some time taking up the trousers of a dinner suit he'd hired for a party that weekend.
Yeah, looks like we've got a good weekend lined up. What with the party and my barbecue party.
Yeah. How many people are going?
Oh, about 15.
Yeah?
Yeah, plenty of women. We planned a lot that weekend. We had 2 parties going on.
Around 6 o'clock, a friend came round to see them.
Where are you off to tonight? Out. Well, who is? A girl? Could be.
He was very reluctant to say where he was going that night, very cagey, although he led us to believe he was seeing a lady friend.
Kavita?
And we prodded him with names. He actually agreed to one.
Yeah, that's right.
After a lot of prodding.
Andrew left home at 8:30 p.m, saying he was late for an appointment. He never came home. John Cobbett, was it all a joke, or was he dealing in drugs?
We can't say for certain whether he was dealing in drugs. There was a lot of talk prior to his disappearance of drugs, and we have to take that seriously. Although we know that, we believe that Andrew wasn't involved in drugs himself, but perhaps he got involved in a bad deal.
There is quite a substantial reward, isn't there, that's been put out on this by his father?
Yes, that's right. £5,000 leading to the whereabouts of Andrew.
Right. Anything to do with his whereabouts that actually proves it will get that reward?
That is true, yes.
The SW1 Club, now, we don't know this had any relationship to his drug dealing, or if that's what he was involved in at all. Might have been some perfectly innocent agreement he had to meet someone there, if indeed he was meeting anyone there at all.
That's true. What we'd like is anybody from who frequents the SW1 club to get in contact with us, that might know Andrew, or who knows him, that can help us build up the picture.
Even if they don't think they know anything about the circumstances of his disappearance?
That's right.
And presumably, too, you'd like to speak to whoever he phoned at 4 o'clock in the morning on that Friday night?
Well, that's
or
right.
Saturday morning?
That's right. I mean, that may have been somebody at the SW1 club, we don't know. But, I mean, we'd obviously like to hear from whoever he did phone up.
The car was abandoned in the Northborough estate in Slough, as I said, about 30 miles from where he lived. You need witnesses for that?
Yes, if anybody saw that car being driven onto that estate, we'd like to hear from them.
OK. Well, Andrew had everything to live for. If you can help in any way, please call us. That's the number, 081 811 8181. Or you can call Farnham Police Station. That's on 0252 716 262. 0252 is the code for Farnham, 716 262. And incidentally, if someone close to you is missing, you might like to call the Missing Persons Helpline, which has been set up by the Susie Lamplugh Trust. The number is 071 580 5005. That's 071 580 5005.
Well, now we had some intriguing results on one particular case from last month's incident desk, but the investigation at the moment is at such a sensitive stage that we can't divulge any details at the moment. So instead, we'll take a look at the latest cases, and here are Jackie Hames and David Hatcher.
First, police in Essex need your help to trace a lorry involved in a fatal hit-and-run accident. It happened here on the southbound section of the M11 near Stansted Airport at about 2 in the morning on Friday the 13th of September. 19-year-old Damien Nichols was on his way to stay the night with relatives when a lorry knocked him off his motorbike and left him by the side of the road. When police found him, he was dead. A forensic examination established that the vehicle involved is one of these, an ERF E-Series lorry cab. The accident would have damaged the near side indicator and the step on the side. We also know that the bumper on the lorry is metallic blue and that the door is maroon. Perhaps you've seen a lorry with damage to these areas, or maybe even carried out the repairs. If you know anything that can help, please call us.
Our next case concerns the rape of a woman in London, but a vital witness could be anywhere in the country. This is the heart of London, home of the theatre and Soho. On Friday the 4th of October at about 10 p.m, a young woman was walking up Rupert Street when a group of men and women drinking outside this pub called over and offered to buy her a drink. She thought they seemed friendly enough and started to chat, and particularly remembers talking to a man called Mark. A short while later, they headed off to a party and invited her to come along. She agreed and they walked up Rupert Street, along Walker's Court and into Peter Street, but she can't remember where they went from there. What she does remember is going down a spiral staircase to a basement flat, which may have been a squat. Here she was given a drink which she liked, and she lost consciousness for a couple of hours. When she came round, she realised she'd been raped.
This was a particularly sickening and cowardly crime. She suffered internal injuries, and we feel that there was more than one person involved. The man who calls himself Mark is about 30 years of age, 6 feet tall, muscular build, and has a London accent. The man who gave her a drink at the party is Mediterranean-looking, weedy, puny build, greasy black hair, pockmarked face, with an earring in his left ear and a tattoo of a baby tiger on his left forearm.
And there's one more crucial witness we still need to trace. A man driving a dark blue Ford Orion saw the victim come out of the flat and kindly stopped to help. We desperately need to speak to this man, as he will remember where the attack took place. He drove her to Edgware, and she remembers him having a northern accent, possibly Mancunian. So if you were that good Samaritan, or if you have any information which could help us trace these two men, please give us a call.
On Sunday the 9th of June, 29-year-old Lynn Trenholm was fatally stabbed while she worked alone at Pinky's massage parlour in Chester. Lynn was last seen alive by a client at 2:30, and we know from her diary that her next appointment was at 5 o'clock with a man named John. We'd like to speak to that man. He could be the same John that used massage parlours in Warrington and Crewe during April and May. Of course, John might not be his real name, but this is what he looks like. He's in his late 20s with fine fairish hair and has a hooked nose. There is another important clue. A witness remembers a dark blue metallic Vauxhall Carlton estate parked outside at 10 to 5 that day. So if you know who the owner of the car is or recognise the man, please ring. Remember, this is a murder inquiry.
And can you help with this next case? On Sunday the 1st of September, the manager of Shaftesbury's nightclub in London was abducted while the weekend's takings were stolen. The night before, Radio Kiss FM had celebrated its first anniversary at Shaftesbury's. Around 9:30 the next morning, the manager left the club for home. As he drove along a side street in Tottenham, he became aware of a red van coming up very fast behind him. He tried to turn the corner, but the van hit him.
Didn't you see the indicator? You're blind or something?
The damage was minimal, and he began to take down the registration number.
What's going on?
They tied him up and held him at knife point for 2 hours, while two of the gang stole his keys and went back to the club. He remembers that the van, an e-registration transit, had decorating equipment inside, and that the gang kept in contact with one another using portable phones. Two of the men involved were Asian, the other was Afro-Caribbean. He got the best look at the driver, who was Asian, about 25, 5'6" and slim build. If you think you know him or can help in any way, do please call us now. There is a reward.
And finally, colleagues from Lancashire are looking for one of these. It's a Venture Continental motorhome, and there are just 2 of them in the country. This is the identical twin to one that went missing during August this year when it was hired to a man from Southern Ireland for 5 weeks. It hasn't been seen since, and we think it's probably been sold on. It had the registration G585NHG, and although that's probably been changed by now, there are some unusual features to look out for. It's built on a Renault Dodge chassis, and rarer still, its left-hand drive. Here above the cab, extra windows have been fitted. There's a microwave oven, and for these chilly November evenings, there's even full central heating. If there's one like this parked in your road, it's bound to be the one we're looking for, so please do call us if you can help on this or any of our other incident desk cases.
And here's the number to the detectives in the studio. And remember, if you prefer, you can speak instead to BBC researchers. It's 081 811 8181. 081 811 8181. Well, now to our final reconstruction. Did you know Vera Anderson? Vera was found dead in her car in the small hours of Sunday, August the 25th, bank holiday weekend. Vera had many friends, but certainly no enemies as far as anyone knows. She lived in Widnes with her 7-year-old son. Her grown-up daughter lived nearby. Many of Vera's friends were long-distance lorry drivers, so investigations could lead police anywhere in the country. Our reconstruction begins in Vera's hometown, in Widnes. Close to the M6 and the M62, Widnes is a convenient stopping place for long-distance lorry drivers travelling the length of Britain. And it was around a popular truck stop called the Roll-In Motel, a few minutes' drive from her home, that Vera's social life revolved. Everyone who knew her remembers Vera as a generous, sociable person. She was one of the few women regulars at the Roll-In. Over the years, she'd had several steady relationships with truck drivers she met there.
Oh, okay, go on then, see what you can do with that. You're going to get that dead easy.
She'd go to the Roll-In 2 or 3 times a week, occasionally with her daughter, Lorraine.
She was very popular. Everybody liked her in there. I'd say the most popular woman in there, because everyone liked her. She was a bubbly sort of person. They just liked her, because she'd do anything for them. She used to do washing for truck drivers, you know, and they'd come and see me if they had any problems or anything like that. She used to knit bunny rabbits just for mostly babies, and the lorry drivers used to buy them for the lorries as well. Did, yeah. Do you want one? $2.50.
On Saturday, August the 24th, the night of her death, Vera went out at about 10:15.
Run next door, Neil, and tell Etty I want her.
Earlier on, she'd had a phone call from someone whom police haven't as yet traced. Just before she left, she unloaded the boot of her old blue Ford Cortina. Perhaps she was making room for something.
Hello, Neil. Will you have Neil for 10 minutes? Yeah, why? What's up? I've got to pick my brother up. Look, I'll tell you about it when I get back. OK.
She never referred to her brothers as my brother. It was always by the first names. And I thought it was unusual for Vera to go out that late at night on her own.
Although this pub in Penketh is only 5 minutes' drive from Vera's home, as far as we know, she rarely went there. But that night, at about 10:30, a witness thinks she saw her.
I remember seeing a lady walking in through the front door of the pub. She was obviously looking for somebody. When I turned back a few seconds later, the lady had her back to me, and she was then involved in a conversation with somebody who I never saw. Somebody had known she was coming into the pub, because in the length of time we'd both been in the place, there wouldn't have been time for her to go to the bar herself, get a drink, and return to where she was standing.
And one of the regulars also noticed the woman.
She had an open, pleasant face. She seemed very interested in what was going on at the bar, both with the customers and the servers. On the odd occasion, I did speak to someone who was behind the pillar. They didn't appear to be lovers or husband and wife. They looked as though they knew each other, and that was it. The man I saw would have been around about 5'8", maybe up to 5'10" or 11. He had mousy to gingery hair. His age would be late 30s, possibly into his 40s.
By closing time, they'd gone, but no one had seen them leave. This is the back of the old tannery off Tannery Lane. It's about 2 minutes' drive from the pub and overlooked by Kenneth Adamson's house.
What I do before I get into bed every night is to look out the window, check the garden for cats, because I keep racing pigeons. And I happened to notice a car parts in the works.
At 1:30 a.m, Richard and Eileen Thomas were walking along Tannery Lane on their way home from the local social club.
There's a car up there, look. Hey, must be a courting couple, eh?
It's now 3:15 a.m.
Patrol to Warrington, urgent.
Patrol calling urgent. Go ahead, over.
Requesting supervision. Found a body in a vehicle.
Roger. On its way. Over.
Vera's throat had been cut. Now, Mr. Anderson, since we made that film, a new witness has come forward with some fresh information which could be quite important.
Yes, at 1:30 a.m. that night, a taxi driver picked up a man in Warrington Road, Penketh. Now, that's about a half a mile from the murder scene and the Crown and Cushion pub. And he asked to be taken to the Halton View area of Widnes, which is about 100 yards from where Vera lived.
So that could be very crucial.
Indeed.
If anybody's seen somebody. What did he look like?
Well, he was in his 30s and he was wearing a raincoat.
So it's a raincoat rather like this one here.
Yes, that's right. Now, the significant thing about this man was that his right hand appeared to be injured. He had a handkerchief wrapped around it and the knuckles were grazed. Now, he may not have anything to do with this inquiry, but I'd ask him to come forward so he can be eliminated.
So if that man was you, or if you think you know who that man was, please do give us a call. What, if you have any theories as to why Vera was killed, what might they be? I mean, it wasn't a sexual assault, it wasn't a robbery.
I'll be quite frank, we don't know the motive. And if anyone has an idea as to why she was killed, I'd ask them to come forward. From our inquiries, we've not found any enemies that Vera had. Quite the contrary, she had a lot of friends, including lorry drivers who used to go to the roll-in. And if any of those lorry drivers, who may be from anywhere in the UK, did know her and haven't been seen by the police, I'd ask them to get in touch with us. Anything that they're able to tell us about her lifestyle will be treated in confidence.
What's really mysterious is her uncharacteristic behaviour, pretending to a neighbour that she was going to go and pick up her brother. Do you think she knew the man who killed her?
Yes, I do. I don't think she would have left a 7-year-old son with a neighbour and gone out that Saturday night. She hadn't planned to do. I can only presume that she went out to meet someone that she knew. I think that the man in the pub, she'd met him before.
Well, she was normally such a straightforward person.
Yes, she was.
Could you remind us of the description of the man she met in the pub again?
Yes, he's a white male, about 5'8" to 5'11" tall, slim-build with a thin face. He had mousy brown hair and a mousy moustache, and he was wearing a fawn jacket. This man has to be my prime suspect, and it's vital that we find him.
And he may, in fact, have been a little bit fairer than our artist's impression looked on the screen.
Yes,
there.
it was mousy to ginger, the colour of his hair.
And finally, there were some clues left behind in Vera's car. How helpful are they?
I think they're very helpful indeed. We haven't found the murder weapon, but the killer left 2 items. The first one was cords similar to this. We believe from our inquiries that it was made abroad, possibly Italy. Now, the outer core is plaited and it's white cotton, and the interior is man-made fibres and natural fibres. It's an unusual cotton mixture, the exterior. The second thing is a white minette glove. It was found at the scene. Now, these can be purchased at major stores throughout the country. People use them if they've got dermatitis or in the connection with the work for handling sensitive items. And it's possible that the killer uses both of these items in connection with his work. And if anyone's got any suggestions as to their origin, I'd like them to get in touch.
Well, thank you. If you can help with any of those points of appeal or know why somebody might have wanted to kill Vera, please do call us, either here in the studio on 081 811 8181 or at police headquarters in Chester, and the number there is 0244 313131. That's 0244, the code for Chester, 313131.
We've just had a quite distressed-sounding man on the phone, had apparently an Irish accent, talking about the Cricklewood murder, saying, I didn't mean to kill him. Obviously, not a lot of help, just saying that. If you really do want to confess and help the police with their inquiry, we're going to need that person to call again. We've got quite a number of other bits of information coming in that might help on the Peter Fletcher case. A lot of calls from the Sussex area. A few calls suggesting drug deals, incidentally. A number of people who might be trying to claim the reward on the Andrew Elphick case. Certainly a lot of people trying to help on that one. Incidentally, last month's Aladdin's Cave was something of a success. 2 Copeland vases here turned out to have been stolen from a dealer's fair in Staffordshire in 1989. And these paintings were taken in a large burglary in Dudley. And this lilac vase, together with other items, are recognised by an officer investigating thefts in Dorset. What's more, Crimewatch viewers told police who they thought was responsible for several of the thefts. 3 men were arrested, 2 have been charged with burglary and 1 with handling stolen goods. Now maybe there's something here that you'll recognise in tonight's Aladdin's Cave, and here to take us through it, Eric Knowles.
Thank you, Nick. Well, several objects on the cave this evening have got a very sort of aristocratic feel to them, but for starters, here's a lovely Victorian chalice. Ecclesiastical, Gothic revival, and it's inset with amethyst gemstones. I can't imagine services, they would happen without something like that. And I can't imagine what it must have been like to lose 5 graduated meat dishes such as these. Again, silver plated, good order, and all bearing a good inscription. Now, GC, are you missing your tiara? For here's a box labelled GC, and here is the tiara. Quite fascinating insofar as it actually transforms into a brooch. Something of a gem, but the real gem has got to be the table. This Georgian satinwood table actually bears a label that states that it once belonged to the last man who was ever hanged for forgery. Casting my eye over the ivories, I can't really spot any forgeries, but 2 girls are putting their best foot forward, and here they are, dating from around about 1930, very Art Deco, and good quality miniature carving. But if you want to see some good quality miniature painting, come and have a look at this miniature. There he is, good-looking chap, very much a Regency book, a Beau Brummel type character, a top artist, but would you believe it doesn't bear a signature? Now, you don't need a signature when you're looking at 6 zany cats such as these. They've got to be Louis Wain, and I don't doubt them for 1 minute. Quite a nice selection of bohemian glass. Our American cousins like to refer to it as cranberry glass. Personally, I like to go for the Stourbridge and call it ruby glass, but nice quality. And next to them, a nice little selection of Japanese export lacquer. I mean, here are a couple of photograph albums, and next to them, here's a box and cover. It actually contains the label of the original maker. Sort of thing that would be brought back by sea captains at the turn of the century. Which brings me rather nicely to a pair of watercolours by H. Terry. Here's an old dear writing to her sailor boy. And its pair? Well, there's a wistful old gentleman entitled Curiosity. And curiosity is something that we're never short of here on the Aladdin's Cave.
And if there's anything there you recognise, or if you can help us with any of our cases tonight, there's the number. The lines are open until midnight. Local numbers are on CFAX on page 618, and we'll be back with the Crimewatch update in about an hour or so at 11:15. So if you or somebody with you can help in any way, please do call us.
And if you can't stay up till Crimewatch update, on behalf of the victims, their families and the police here, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for calling if you have done. Thank you for helping to set some of these cases on the way to being solved. Don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.